Hello, and welcome to just another kind of quick one around attending events. Again, everyone's always had their first event, so I thought I'd just go through a few different things around events and kind of what to expect, what to prepare for, and go from there. So, have run myself large-scale events, as you can kind of see in the background, of 150 people, all the way down to much smaller scale events with around kind of 20 to 30 people. So have seen kind of variety of different people start up in events. I went to my first event in 2021 post kind of COVID restrictions, so have been going to them for a few years as well, and attended a lot of different types of events, from kind of single ones, doubles and teams as well, so kind of experienced all sides of it. So just kind of want to go through what we're going to kind of cover. So looking at what you actually need, what you should expect, how to prepare, and kind of goals, because it's always good to kind of set yourself something you want to achieve, to give yourself something to kind of work towards. And it's probably not going to be winning your first event, as nice as that would be, and not impossible, but probably not the most likely of things. For events in general, the way in which they track and work out pairings and results and everything else like that, there is a thing called BCP, which is Best Coast Pairings, and that is where you'll input your list, and you'll then kind of find out who you're playing against, what their army list is. So it's useful to have a login for that. It's called Best Coast Pairings. I'll put a link in the description. Obvious one possibly, but you'll need an army. Generally for mass majority of singles events, as well as teams events as well, it is going to be a 2,000 point army for 40k. Generally they'll expect it to be painted. That does not mean you're going to win a Golden Demon level of painting, but there is generally expectations set out that you'll need to have done. Generally the kind of old-fashioned rule of 3 colours and painted, based, kind of with either a texture paint or sand chucked on or something, as well as then a list. It doesn't necessarily need to be, you found the most competitive list online and you're going to try that. It's probably best to take something as a list that you have practiced with, because you need to understand your rules. So you need to know what your army does, what it's capable of, as well as be able to tell your opponent, because 40k is actually a collaborative game and you need to kind of work together to get to the end. So it's not your rules are a mystery to your opponent. If they ask you something, you may not be able to tell them straight away. You might have to look it up, but you kind of share with your opponent what your army does, and also kind of reciprocally they do the same for you. If you're not sure, ask, is that unit any good at Overwatch? Is that unit able to advance and charge? Ask questions is a good way to kind of play through, because you can check as you're going. You will need a few things. Not all are necessary, but most of them are useful. You will need dice. You don't need a bucket full, but you kind of need enough that you can easily roll kind of attacks. 20 is probably sufficient. I take a silly number, but that's just me. Some people are quite superstitious with their dice, so they'll have quite a few with them, because if their dice are not performing well, they'll stop using those ones and trade to another. A tape measure, one that specifically measures in inches. I would probably avoid one that's too heavy or chunky, just because you don't want to drop it on people's models. Some way to track wounds. People do this in a variety of different ways. Some people use 12-sided dice. Some people have little physical things they put on the table that you can put a dice in. And then there are other ones where people have got spinny dials, and useful. Another one that's quite useful is a dice tray. I, however, am the worst for it, because I tend to use my dice tray to store my dice rather than roll in it. But it is quite useful for keeping dice together in terms of when you're rolling. It can make things easier for you. Measuring widgets, generally a 3-inch one, which also has like a 2-inch and a 1-inch. This is useful for measuring engagement range, measuring gap between models, and then a 9-inch one for units coming in from reserve is also quite useful, but not necessary because you have your tape measure. But it's a thing that people find useful to have. Some events you might even get some of this kind of stuff for free when you attend, when you turn up. There's kind of a little bonus thing. You also then need some form of your rules, whether that is a physical codex or they are electronic via the Warhammer app. Do check the event pack, which I'll go through what that is in a minute, to make sure there isn't a specific clarification around whether you can use third-party rules, kind of things such as New Recruit or ListForge, which are third-party list builders, to kind of be a rules reference. Also, I personally find the mission cards, like the actual chapter approved currently deck, is quite useful, just because then I can check what the physical secondary card says, because there is an app called Tabletop Battles, which is very useful for tracking your score as you go through the game, making sure that it's accurate, being able to check your opponent. But I find having the physical mission cards is quite useful to remind me to actually do my secondaries, as otherwise I forget quite quickly. And then finally, objective markers are quite useful. They don't have to necessarily be huge, shiny, fancy ones. You can order ones relatively cheaply from like Amazon. You'll generally find your opponent probably will have some as well, and even the 40mm markers, which is the actual central part of it, a lot of people still use as well. Other than something to carry your army in to the event that you feel can transport it safely, and that can be as simple as a really useful box full of the little packaging peanuts, or what's it called, bubble wrap, something like that, that just means you can transport your army safely. Something that you can move your army from table to table between rounds, that means you don't have to pack everything away completely, unless you have like magnetized trays that a lot of people tend to buy when they're quite committed to traveling around with an army. But something that is as simple as like a huge tray like this, massive. I bought this from B&Q, I think. It's a box lid. It was £3 or £4, and I just used that for quite a long time to put my army on in between rounds and carry it from table to table, because it's a lot easier than trying to cradle them in your hands, or having to run back and forth to a table to kind of carry a few at a time. Obvious one, but just make sure you have got a ticket to the event, that you've actually signed up, that your name is on BCP. Don't want to turn up and not actually be playing. Another one that's really huge that a lot of people don't tend to do a lot is actually have water. I tend to, for larger events in particular, buy a decent sized water bottle. A lot of places will have taps or water points to fill up water bottles, but it's really easy to get dehydrated and forget to drink. So it's just making sure you have water, and then snacks again as well, because it just keeps you running effectively, and makes you able to focus on the game. So again, some of those are more necessary than others. One of the ones I haven't spoken about is a clock, which is used at some events. It's very rare that it's fully enforced by most places, because it's not quite there yet, but it's something to kind of learn how to use, or be aware of how to use them, because you may find one day you get someone ask you to play on a clock. It's quite straightforward in terms of you have the time divided in half, so it's a 3-hour round. You might get an hour and a half each to play your turn, and you basically pass the time back and forward. If you've never played on a clock, it's very much useful to talk to your opponent about how you use the clock, or have a look in the event pack, because they generally will have a how to use the clock or expectations with the clock. What you should expect if you've signed up for an RTT, a one-day event, traditionally known as a Road Trader Tournament. You'll have 3 games, which will take you somewhere from 9 to 10 hours of day kind of game time. generally you're looking at most events start at about 9 o'clock and will finish sometime between 7 and 8 p.m, depending on how long breaks and things like that are. So it can be quite a long day. If you're playing a grand tournament, a GT, you're looking at least 5 games. Some are longer if you are doing well, but in general it's 5 games for most. You will feel very tired at the end. It is mentally taxing. You are doing a lot for, an entire part of a day. You need to make sure you sit down regularly, otherwise you'll end up with your back hurting and your feet hurting. So taking breaks and actually using the chairs provided is really important, so that you don't kind of get up Sunday or Monday morning and suddenly realise you can't move, because it's quite easy to forget. I am really bad at never sitting down and then really feeling the effects after the event. To have fun, again, that's the entire reason people sign up to events, to enjoy them, to go out and partly be sociable, to meet up and play with their toy soldiers. That's kind of the main thing. Highs and lows, generally it might be a case of you rolled some dice and the unit failed a charge and then it died. And, it's kind of annoying, but you also might find that, your unit that really should have died to all that bolter fire still lives, and, you rolled just enough saves and then they managed to kill something particularly cool, or there's a moment that's happened that, a vehicle's exploded and killed another vehicle that's killed something, and kind of daisy chain. So it's kind of funny sometimes as well. Kind of, you've got to make sure you don't take yourself too seriously. Otherwise you're not going to enjoy it, and kind of the main goal of having fun. Use it as a learning experience if it's your first event. Talk to other players, kind of take photos of your game is something that a lot of people tell people to do. Take a photo at the start of a turn, at the end of a turn, and then kind of you can look at what you've done within that turn. Where did you move your units? What happened? And kind of gives you a bit of a learning journal, as it were. Also talk to opponents at the end of a game and kind of ask them what you could have done better, because most people are very happy to talk through with everyone about what might have worked better. Is there anything you missed that you could have done differently, and kind of that sort of thing. And just take your time to actually talk to everyone there as much as you want to. Don't have to, but and preparing for the event, one of the things to do particularly early on is reading the event pack, because that will tell you where it's being held, what time to be there, because although it might be the first round starts at 9 o'clock, it's probably worth getting there a little bit early just to make sure that you don't feel rushed. You can unpack your army, you can find out where the toilet is, you can make sure you've got water, that your car's parked in the right place, or however else you're getting there. So just kind of give yourself time to be there and ready. Have a look at what missions are being played, so that you prepare a list that you feel will be able to play those games. Look at the terrain type. So I've gone through format that I use, which is WTC, World Team Champion Tournament Terrain. There's UKTC, Games Workshop layouts. They are different. There's not huge kind of effects unless you're playing certain armies. For example, some of the super heavy units might struggle to move around on WTC, and you might find that if you take an all bikes list, you've got to be prepared for how you're going to move around the terrain. But again, don't stress too much. Just have a look and be aware of what it's looking like. You'll probably find on the Facebook group or a Discord or wherever kind of the event venue kind of puts information, you'll probably find pictures of previous events as well, so you'll be able to look at what the terrain actually looks like, so you kind of know what you're expecting, because it's less of a surprise. Get a good night's sleep. If you are tired, it makes it much more difficult. Again, I'm terrible at taking my own advice for that one, and again, because it's really important, pack water and snacks, Make sure you have a plan for lunch as well, so kind of investigating what's around, if there's anything on offer at the venue, just so that you kind of plan for eating throughout the day as well, because don't want to be hungry. Setting goals, managing expectations for your first event, and kind of knowing, going in and thinking, actually, okay, I'm going to try and make sure that I remember all of the movement characteristics for my army. I'm going to make sure that I can find my rules quickly. I'm going to make sure that I ask my opponent a question about their army each turn to make sure I'm not falling into a trap of being too close to an opponent's unit that I didn't realise could advance and charge. It could be that you're going to try and make it that each game you score more victory points than the previous one, that you're going to focus on getting the highest primary score the highest secondary score. There's no kind of right or wrong answer for what goal you want to have, but just making sure you have something that you want to achieve by the end of the event, because that's, nice to feel like you're going away, even if you've lost all 3 or 5 games, you're going away and feeling like you've achieved something and learnt something. It might be to talk to someone else running the same army as you and discussing the differences between your list and theirs. Why did they kind of bring the units they have? But yeah, so it's useful to make sure that you have something that you want to achieve by the end. One of the things that sometimes happens with people is event burnout. Primarily, events should be fun. So if you're attending events and you're kind of finding them tiring, a lot of people find, particularly a lot of the players that play the larger events very regularly and do well, after there's the WTC, which is the big teams event, that is the kind of like World Cup for Warhammer effectively, and a lot of the players after that will take a month off from playing Warhammer because they've done so much and they kind of just need a break, and then they come back and they enjoy it a bit more or feel refreshed. So much like anything, taking time off from something to not overdo it is probably a good thing to do as well. So that is a very, very quick talk through of just kind of attending your first event. And again, if you're finding that after a few you're not enjoying them, take some time out before going back to another one. Assess why. Have a look at what you can do differently. But the main thing is to kind of go and have fun and not to worry or stress about, how you're going to do. Because it's just a bit of fun playing with toy soldiers. And obviously I run events down in Kent. It'd be lovely to see people at them, as well as larger scale ones at the University of Kent as well. So always happy to see new faces at events, and hope to see you at one soon.